Hey guys, this is Metal Stash here, and this video I am going to be showing you guys what I have gotten to work as a fog of war. I I have kind of thought of this in three different ways. Uh, you know, I don't know if either way could work or not. I've thought of different things like using lights to act as a fog of war, but I had ran into the issue where the terrain started uh, getting too bright, so you'd get this giant ball of white on the ground, and I didn't really know how to get around that, and I also didn't know how to uh, make enemy units render or show up on camera when they're in the light and when they're not. So that was kind of a not a way I could get it to work. And then I thought about doing projectors. I could create a plane that is, all the vertices on it are set to the height of like the obstacles and the ground, stuff like that. So, so when you were on different levels, it would still project downward and create a transparent circle. But I was running into the issue of trying to get a transparent circle. I couldn't get that to work, and I also couldn't. I wouldn't have control of whether or not it would be shown past an obstacle that is inside of the unit's sight. So he would almost be able to look past an obstacle. So then I thought of creating a bunch of boxes, and that gives me the most control over how I want the boxes to be shown. So that's what I've gone with. Going to the project here to show you guys a little bit of what I have gotten it to do. So I have the whole bounds of the map that I've defined as bounds is covered in black boxes, and the this inside area where the buildings can see, the boxes are hidden, so you can see the ground below it, and you can also see down in the minimap it works just the same, because the minimap and the camera are actually rendering all of the boxes twice. So I haven't optimized the material on the boxes at all either. The shader could actually be changed just a little bit to be less intensive or more basic. So if I create a unit here, it's going to spit out a spider in about, there we go, and you see it updates the spider and the fog where, since this ground is above it, it can't see up to that ground. So if I move it onto that ground, he can now see onto this ground, and he can also see below himself. And I have not tested this with a lot of units, but I have looked at frame rates of like about 13-14 units, and I get still about 60 frames, so it's still pretty good, but I'm still working on optimizing it so that it doesn't tax the processor so much. So I'm not gonna be going into as much of the code as I normally would, but I'm trying to get the idea of how I went about doing this. So where it all starts is this new Fog of War creator script, and I added this script to my player because each player has kind of his own Fog of War, and I might actually have to change this for an alliance, because say you had two players on the same alliance, well, they actually want to be able to see each other, so that's actually going to be the same Fog of War. So I might actually have to change it to be like a game object that I create for an alliance. It's just kind of a holder script there. So the Fog of War creator, it's more like a manager, but I give it the size of the fogs and the bounds of the map, and then I have some arrays here for my searching and stuff like that, and then how many times I want to update it, and then also the material of the fog normal, because I was trying to do a like, you know, where you have a grayed out edge. I was trying to do that, but because they're individual boxes and transparency, you would see like part of the box, because when the two boxes were touching, it was really weird. So I didn't like the way it worked, so I just got rid of it. I could actually get rid of that line, but going into what it does. On start, this is where it creates all the boxes. I get the Fog of War prefab that I have, which is just basically a box. This is the normal fog material. The amount of divisions or amount of boxes in the X and Y direction, so it's just the map bounds divided by the size of the box or the fog. And then for every Y and X division, I'm going to create a box at this height position. And I actually first, before creating the box, I cast a ray downwards towards the ground so that I actually get a height of the ground and obstacles. So if I can actually show you guys this. If I pause the game and runtime, the obstacle I have here actually makes the boxes appear above the others, so that you get a kind of a height map. So then if I check two raycasts, actually, if it hits the ground and if it hits an obstacle. If it hits an obstacle, I actually want to check if its renderer is enabled, and if its name is not bounds, because buildings have an obstacle box for the path rendering, so I had to add that in there. And then I set the ground height to be, if it hits an obstacle, I'm going to get the max of those two hits of the ground and the obstacle, so that, you know, then you get the maximum value and all that. Otherwise, I'm just going to get the ground. So then I set the this height position value to the ground height that I calculate, and then I instantiate a fog object there, and I do that for every X division, every Y division. So there's roughly, I believe, let's see, it's 40 by 40, so there's 1,600 of them. So it's quite a bit that's actually going through, and it's been running fairly well so far. And this is actually a very important part, this layer set here. I set its layer to be 12. This is a new layer that I've added. It is called Player 1. I might actually change that to Team 1 after I've thought about it a little bit. I didn't really think about it before this video, but that's a new layer I've added, so it's just for the fogs, and it might be for a few other things that I've kind of thought of. So after the fog has been created, we're going to go over to the unit script, and in its update function, I've added a overlap sphere physics collision check at its position for its sight range and in the fog layer. This fog layer is going to be the same as what I have set as the Player 1 layer. I haven't dynamically been able to set or get the player's layer yet, so I'm working on that. Right now I'm just manually putting in like which one they need to look at and stuff like that, but I'm going to later do that where it dynamically gets them. So I just check if it actually you know, gets fog back. I mean, you know, if its length is greater than 1, that means it has something. I'm going to get a ground offset, and then for every fog object that it hits, it's going to check if its fog of war component is not null, and then I'm going to check if the position minus the basically this is resetting this to be the ground height that it is currently on. I'm adding a just a 0.5 buffer, and then checking if it's less than the fog's Y value. This is just to check for rendering fog that is above and below. So if it's less than, it's just going to it's not going to pay attention to this one. It's just going to continue through the loop. So it's going to ignore that iteration and just continue to the next one. So then it checks if the fog of war is hidden by a building, or if it's not hidden by a building, excuse me. Then it's going to do a line cast to check if it hits the obstacle layer, or if it doesn't hit the obstacle layer. I'm getting these all screwed up. If it doesn't hit the obstacle layer, then it needs to set this render to be false. Otherwise, it did hit, or yeah, it did hit the obstacle layer. And then it needs to also check if the collider's name is not equal to bounds, and if its collider renderer is not enabled. So if it's not enabled, that means, well, it's actually, yeah, that means it's like the ledges I have here. I have colliders here that are in the obstacles layer, but the mesh renderers aren't on, so you still want to be able to see past them. So I still set their fog renderer to be enabled false. So then I check if I do two different styles of settings for if this unit is a building, otherwise it's a normal unit. So if it is a building, it's going to check if the fog is already not, if it's not hidden by a building. That means it should be. So then it also checks if, to make sure if the fog renderer is not enabled. That means it's already hidden. Then I'm just going to set its hidden by building value to be true, so that it is now being hidden by this building. I'll show you guys later what that's going to do. Now if it's a unit, it's going to check if it hasn't been checked this update and it is not hidden by building, then it's going to be hidden by a unit, and then I'm going to set the unit stationary boolean value equal to get component move.has ended. So it's checking if this unit has stopped moving, then it's going to set the unit stationary value equal to that. So if it stopped moving, it's true, it has stopped moving. Then it's going to say that this fog of war has been checked this update. So that's all the unit's doing. What it's coming over here and telling fog of war. Fog of war is the fog of war boxes. Each of them has a fog of war script on them, and they have a checked this update boolean, hidden by building boolean, hidden by unit, unit stationary, and added to manager boolean. And then I also have an update time, so that it doesn't update every frame, it only updates a certain amount of time. So at first I say checked this update is equal to false. This is to constantly make the fog of war be checked when every update time this is called. So if the current time is greater than the update time, that means it should check. It's going to check if it's hidden by a unit and it hasn't been added to the manager. That manager is the Fog of War creator over here. I almost should rename it to Fog of War Manager because that makes more sense. And then it also checks that it is not hidden by a unit that is stationary. So it gets the player that it is associated with. I'm going to make that dynamic later, where it gets, you know, the certain player that it's owned by, and then it gets the Fog of War Manager creator, hidden fog, and it adds it to the hidden fog array. That's the array you guys saw in the script before. So then it has been added to the manager, so it doesn't need to run through this again, unless of course it is hidden by the unit still. So then I set hidden by unit false and reset the time counter. And here, you know, if it's hidden by unit, I'm going to add the time to it. So over here in the Fog of War creator, when it is added to the hidden fog array here, the hidden fog array is then going to I'm going to set this equal to a built-in JavaScript array so that I can search through it really quickly. Sheesh. So it's going to check if the fog is not hidden by building and it is not hidden by unit, then I just need to reset it. It's you know, it's enabled to, its render is enabled true. Its render material is reset to fog normal. I could probably get rid of that since I'm not using it truthfully. And then I'm saying that it's not been added to the manager because it is now going to be removed. And I'm going to reset the built-in, or I'm going to reset the fog array to the new array that has been created by removing said fog component or unit or whatever. So if it is hidden by a unit, then it needs to set its render equal to true, and it has its Fog of War component added to manager is equal to false, and then I remove it and do the reset to it. The reason I set its enabled render, or its render enabled to true, is so that the unit will update it back here where it sees it does this whole thing where it sees that it's turned on, and it's gonna do its whole thing with the line cast again. So that's just to update it every couple of seconds, because this only runs the update time. This I was able to do with yield, wait for a certain amount of seconds. For some reason, Fog of War I wasn't able to get. I think it's because there's so many Fog of Wars, I wasn't able to use yield. So back to this. Otherwise, if the fog is hidden by building, it's going to set its hidden by building variable to false, render to true, added to manager false, and then remove it and reset. So this this function is just called every update, and it'll automatically wait for that amount of time. So the things that I've optimized with it, so that you guys can see what this is actually doing, because a lot of this is really confusing. It was really confusing for me to figure out, and I'm still working on trying to get it to work very well. So each of the lines that is going to draw is an added fog to the fog manager. Hopefully you guys, well, I first have to turn on gizmos. I don't even know if it, okay. Hopefully you guys can see when this unit is moving, there's a bunch of green rays being drawn on the screen, but then they stop when the unit stops. So what this is doing is when the unit's moving, it's adding all those fog objects to the fog manager to check for them, and then when it stopped, well, it doesn't need to keep checking these. The unit's not moving. It's not updating anything. So it doesn't need to check these. So that's why that's the big thing that really optimized the script for me, because before I was like checking them every single update, and it was getting ridiculous on the how much it was processing. So I've done checks of how many it's processing, and usually it's only about like 20 at a time. It depends on how much it gets at one time. But that's about it, guys. A little update about what some different videos I'm going to be doing. I'm still going to be doing these videos, but on top of this, I'm going to be doing some videos about asset store stuff. I don't know if you guys have ever checked out the asset store. It's actually a pretty cool place. It's got some really nice extensions that you can add on to Unity that are really useful, and I'm going to be checking out the free ones, and I'm going to be doing a couple videos on things that I found that were really cool. I'm going to be doing like free extensions in the texture side, Unity editor extension, stuff like that, and I'm also going to be doing some shader videos. So please subscribe if you guys want to see more, and I will see you guys later. Thanks for watching.